I was haunted by public enemy number one, 1930s, bank robber, Vivian Chase. Hello. Welcome to our latest true story video. Hope you enjoy today's tale.
Summary of the Vivian Chase article. Vivian Chase, once considered one of the most dangerous female criminals in the country, met a violent end that matched her infamous lifestyle. Known for her cold demeanor and unwavering nerve, Chase had long been connected to major crime rings and was involved in robberies, kidnappings, and jailbreaks. Authorities had been on the lookout for her and her known associate when her lifeless body was discovered stuffed inside a stolen car near a Kansas City hospital. Investigators pieced together a chilling sequence of events. They believed Chase was shot in the back of the neck during a dispute with a partner, likely over stolen loot, before she had a chance to defend herself with the pistol she carried in her handbag. Her body was found alongside weapons, ammunition, and cash, suggesting she had remained active in criminal circles up until her death. Police linked her to multiple crimes, including a bank robbery and a dramatic escape from jail. Her criminal history stretched back years, and many of her known associates had died violently, including her husband, who was killed in a bank robbery a decade earlier. Chase's life ended in betrayal, mirroring the brutal world she lived in. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rick Donnelly. I was an orderly back in 1985. I want to make one thing clear. I did not believe in ghosts. I'd seen too much of real life to be scared of made-up things. I spent 2 years in Nam. I'm on my third marriage. I've spent 15 years working the night shifts at St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City. I've watched people die with their eyes open. I've mopped the blood up off the floor while the family's still screaming in the next room. Nothing shook me. Until her. It started on November 2nd, 1985. It was just another night shift, no different from any other. The hospital, like an old friend, was the same, cold, gray, and smelling faintly of antiseptics and bleach. I had microwaved some soup for supper, and around 3 a.m., I stepped out back to smoke, like I always did. There was a door behind the ER back then. Concrete steps, rusted railings, and the old patch of asphalt where the interns dumped the broken gurneys and went to grab a random smoke or two. I guess that's where this tale begins, 'cause they say that's where they found her body, back in 1935. Her name was Vivian Chase. She was some Depression-era outlaw. Shot in the neck and left for dead in a car just a few feet from where I was standing that night. I really didn't think anything about it back then. I just wanted to grab a quick smoke, and this was the best place for that. At first, I did not even feel the shift in the atmosphere that would have warned me. Maybe if I had been more sensitive, I would have had the time to flee, to get away from her before she noticed me, before she found me. Even now, thinking about it has goose flesh crawling up my arms. I stepped out onto the concrete, grabbed a smoke from my pack, lit up, took a drag, and I swear to God, I heard someone exhale behind me. I spun around. Nothing. My gaze traveled over the well-worn wall. I could see nothing, but I could hear movement. As if someone standing only feet from me was shifting positions, I rubbed my hand over my face. "Pull it together, man," I said out loud to myself, a small chuckle escaping my lips. I was shocked when I suddenly realized my lighter was gone from my hand. My eyes began to search the pavement for the misplaced lighter. I hadn't even heard it fall, and then I heard it. Click, click, click. The sound of the lighter wheel turning, the sound of the flame coming to life. But I couldn't see it anywhere. My head turned on a swivel as I became aware of the sound moving towards me, high heels on concrete, and they were coming closer. My eyes were desperately searching the dimly lit alleyway. I could hear the sounds, but I could see nothing. Nervously, I began to back up. I reached out my hand, searching the wall for the door and its handle, blindly, desperately seeking the knob, but too afraid to turn my back. Somehow, the steps suddenly felt damp beneath my feet, even through my work shoes, and I could feel it. I looked down. There were 2 footprints on the step below me. Small imprints. The impressions, high heels. Prints damp on the concrete step, clearly visible. My lighter suddenly appeared floating before my face. Nothing was holding it. It was just hanging in midair. Click, click, and the flame shot to life right before my eyes. I heard someone saying, "No. No way, man." It took me a minute to realize I was who was speaking. In a terrified burst, I threw my cigarette to the ground, yanked that door open, and got the hell back inside on a run. I heard the lighter hit the asphalt as the door swung shut, followed by the sound of a woman's giggle. "Don't you dare tell anyone," I thought to myself. I mean, who would believe me? An old war vet seeing things? I shook my head. I'd be lucky if they didn't ship me off to a psych ward, I thought. Just let it go. You've got to forget about it. Forget about all of it. I tried. I really did try. But the problem was it wasn't to end up a one-time thing. It has taken me years to understand why it happened to me. Why did she follow me, never leaving me in peace? Why is she here now? She used to say I looked like the guy who left her to die in the parking lot. But now she says I am the guy. The next night, after encountering her for the first time, I came into work for my usual night shift. Before leaving my shift that night, I realized I would need to take a quick shower before I went home. My clothes had been spattered with blood as I mopped an area in the ER tonight, and I had no desire to have someone's blood on my clothes when I got home to my wife and daughter. I was alone in the employee area. I opened my locker to grab out my towel, when to my confusion, I found inside, lying on the neatly folded towel, an old .44 caliber bullet directly in the middle. I pulled it out, taking it in my hand, turning it round and round in my fingers. I glanced around the room. No one else was present. There was no way it could have been here. I certainly did not bring bullets into the hospital. My mind suddenly, on its own, began to weave, wrapping my thoughts around the story, that old tale of the female robber left in her car, wounded in the old parking lot. They said she carried more ammunition the night she died, except the gun she carried was a .22. The police theorized that she had been double-crossed with the wrong ammunition by an accomplice. This thing that was following me, could it be her? Vivian Chase? I slammed my locker doors shut, dropping the bullet into my pocket. How had it got here? What did it mean? No one knew about my experience in the old lot. I didn't tell a soul. I could feel my heart starting to speed up. My fear is on the rise. My mind was desperately wanting to make sense of what was happening. And for just a moment, I told myself it was my co-workers. You know they did not do this. I scolded myself. I knew they could not get into my locked locker, plus no one here would play a prank like that. We don't joke about guns. No, something was wrong. I could feel it in my soul. There was a feeling, a dread creeping up my back, and a tightness in my gut that was warning me something was not right. I also knew instantly there was no way I would undress and get in a shower with the weird things that were happening here. I grabbed up my belongings and headed toward the door. I stopped dead in my tracks as a sound drifting into the locker room from somewhere beyond the door surrounded me. A husky female voice laughed as it moved away down the hall. For a couple of days, things had returned to normal. I had spent a good deal of my night hanging around the nurse's station, as it was a slow night. And seriously, I had no real desire to be alone. Then, not by choice, I found myself alone later, manning the station while the others had gone to get coffee. They asked if I would keep an eye on the ER desk while they grabbed it, promising to bring me a cup too. I couldn't very well tell them no, that I couldn't watch the desk for a few minutes because a 1930s thief would haunt me. Now could I? They had not been gone long when, as I sat there, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye and turned my head toward the door to the hall. Peeking around the door, a woman stood there. Red-haired. She was staring straight at me. I rose to my feet, following her as she moved away. As I walked out into the hall that she was retreating down, I had just enough time before she turned a corner to get a good look at the woman. She was dressed in a 1930s-style blue dress, red hair pulled up in an old-fashioned style. I was shocked to find the hallway was almost 12 degrees colder than the rest of the area. I hurried to the corner she had rounded, but could find no sign of the red-haired woman in the blue dress. She had simply disappeared. I went to the security office. The guard and I reviewed the grainy tapes, but there was nothing to be seen. The woman I had seen had not shown up on the cameras. I could be seen on the camera looking for something, but there was no woman ever visible on the tapes. Maybe I was slipping? I rubbed my hand over my eyes, worry creasing my forehead. Was I imagining the things I had been experiencing? I was starting to worry about my stability. Was working night shifts starting to deprive me of too much sleep? Was this some leftover psychosis from the war? The following night, I found myself reasoning with myself while on break. I had taken to foregoing my nightly cigarette for fear of meeting up with something in the lot again. I was also trying to work through what was happening to me. These things were not happening when I was away from the hospital, which alone reassured me that it was not my mental health I needed to worry about. My mind turned to the legend of Vivian Chase. Was I seeing the spirit of the woman? I crossed to a chair on the other side of the room, and the cold temperature suddenly settled over my shoulders like a shroud. I reached up, clasping my hands over my ears as I was assaulted with dozens of voices whispering all at once. Sinking to my knees, I came to realize it was the same voice, only multiplied over and over. What it was saying I could not understand at first, but I knew it was angry. Suddenly the voice became clear. "You left me to die. You left me to die," it said. I could feel the verbal assault against my skin, like punches. Then I saw her, not a vision. It was her, and there was no doubt that she was a ghost. She stood still near the door. Red hair, pale face, eyes black as rot. She gazed into me, eyes solid black. Then she smiled, like she had been waiting a long time to be seen, to be recognized. And then she vanished with a popping noise. She was simply gone, in seconds, right before my eyes. I took the next day off work, and I started digging into the old story. I spent a part of the day going through old newspapers on microfiche at the library. I found everything they had on the Vivian Chase case. She was found outside St. Luke's Hospital on November 3rd, 1935. No one knows who killed her or how she came to be outside St. Luke's on that cold night. There were no arrests and no autopsy reports. I don't think the city cared, as they probably felt they were well rid of her. It seems no one looked too deeply at how she had come to be abandoned, bleeding and helpless in her car outside the hospital. She was a thief, there is no doubt. She mainly targeted pharmacies. They say that she escaped jail once using a bedsheet rope, and she kidnapped a banker with a gun she pulled from her garter. Seems Vivian was made from the stuff of legends. And like so many lawless legends, she had met an awful fate. I had read how she had been buried in a blue dress that had been sent to the funeral parlor by someone. And the stories all reported that her funeral had been paid for by an anonymous man. The newspapers had reported it all with as much sensationalism as possible. Some said it was her lover. Others said it was her killer. All the information that I had dug up, and yet I still knew nothing. It was frustrating. How would I ever get rid of her if I did not gain more knowledge about why she might be haunting me? Would she ever leave me alone? Would it get better? Surely she did not really think I was the man who abandoned her to her fate. I wasn't even alive when she was. Asking those questions had not been wise, because as soon as I started thinking about them, the haunting got worse. The smells started. Expensive, flowery perfume and gunpowder. Every night, overwhelming, in the stairwell, the elevator, the locker room. It followed me up and down hallways as I dealt with patients and other staff. Through emergencies or not, that smell was there, and accompanying it was the biting cold that no one else seemed to notice. Brief glimpses of the blue dress rounding corners ahead of me in the halls. The scent of something old and mischievous, something decaying, always lying just below the surface. The smell carried with it a whisper of a violent life and a mysterious death. And through it all, the feeling of eyes watching never left me. One night, I decided to go outside to the old parking lot. I had avoided that place at all costs up till this moment. But I had about all I could take. I had decided to confront my fears, for better or worse. I stepped out the door and lit a cigarette more to give myself a minute to gather my courage than anything else. I was determined to show her I had no fear of her presence. But to my shock, when I looked up, she was there. Waiting. She looked like a woman who had lived a rather tough life. She looked like what she was, a bank robber. Someone used to taking what she wanted, yet never being able to rest, always and forever on the run. She glided toward me like fog. And then she spoke. "Why did you do it?" she asked. I was shaking. "What?" I managed. "Why did you leave me to die? Why did you run?" She yelled. She reached out her bony hand and touched me. She used her index finger to poke me hard. Immediately, my chest burned like I had been shot. I dropped to my knees, gasping. My skin bubbled like hot grease, and I passed out. Another orderly taking a smoke break 20 minutes later found me passed out on the ground alone. I had a quarter-sized blister on my chest where her finger had jabbed me. I still have the scar today. She marked me that night. Maybe that is how she managed to follow me from that night on. They checked me out, but could find nothing that could explain the blister or why I had passed out cold, even though I was telling my boss I was all right. He still sent me home. Maybe I was exhausted, they reasoned, but that wouldn't explain the blister. They had to give that one up. I worked a lot of overtime hours. Maybe I just needed some time off. I went home to my wife, Clara. Clara helped me to bed with a comment about how pale I looked. My daughter Emily commented to my wife I heard before the door closed, a comment that got my attention. She said to her mother that I smelled like burnt flowers. Burnt flowers? Yes, the scent of flowers was there, she was right. But it was different now. It did smell as if it was made of flowers that had been singed. Strange, but if the smell was present, it also must mean. Vivian had followed me home. I jerked my head around looking about the room, but there was nothing to be seen. Exhausted moments later, I fell into a fitful sleep. I woke up with a high fever, one that I could not shake for days. Nothing Clara did could break it. She called the hospital, and I was off for a few days of rest. Within the next couple of days, my daughter started talking to someone she called Vivi. When I queried her about who she was speaking to, she said that Vivi wore a blue dress, had red hair, and had something red that she thought was blood on her necklace. I didn't sleep well that night. The night I found out Vivian Chase was speaking with my child was the most terrifying night I have ever lived. Would she hurt her? I had no way of knowing. I had gotten up and made my way to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I was looking in the vanity mirror when I saw her standing behind me. "You left me. You left me to die." I whipped around to face her, but found myself staring at the empty wall behind me. I turned back to the mirror, and to my horror, realized in the reflection Vivian was still there. The image of Vivian leaned forward towards me and screamed. A gut-wrenching scream that should have brought the house running, but didn't. She swiped at my head with her hand, a grunt of anger as she disappeared. I called in a pastor and had him bless the house. A friend who was a bit of a mystic from my Nam days made some recommendations that I tried. We burned sage at the urging of my wife's native auntie, but nothing we did worked. I packed the family up, quit my job, gave them no notice, and we moved 2 states over. But it did not stop Vivian. She traveled with us. She never left us. She is still with us. I am afraid she always will be. She seems to think I am the man who left her the night she died. Sometimes, for years, in the dead of the night, I would hear the whispers and giggles coming from my daughter's room in the middle of the night. Emily is grown now. She moved away and has a family of her own. Vivi never heard her, and she did not follow her when she moved out. Clara passed last year from cancer, and on her last day of life, she spoke to Vivi constantly. She would urge Vivian to come with her, but Vivian told her that she was not going to heaven. She didn't deserve it, she said. We live alone now. Vivian and I. She isn't tied to the hospital. Maybe she never was, but she is tied to me. Maybe I am the man who left her, if you believe in reincarnation. Some nights, I wake up and find the wet shoe prints in the hallway. Watching the game, I will suddenly find the room drenched in the smell of perfume and gunpowder. The click of high heels is constantly behind me in the late-night dark walks through my home. Emily brought her family home at Christmas this year. Sydney slept in her mom's old room for the first time on Christmas Eve. During the night, I heard her talking to someone for hours. Christmas morning, my 6-year-old granddaughter informed me at the breakfast table that Vivi had said I had better prepare to go with her soon, as my time is nearly over. My daughter got upset with Sid saying that. But what my daughter does not know is that I have a rare cancer, and they don't think I will make it many more months. But Vivian knows. I wish I had never opened that door, taken that break to smoke. I should have never looked into those hollow eyes. Now I understand. Vivian doesn't want justice. She doesn't want peace. She wants company. I won't ever be free of Vivian. She chose me. I won't be able to leave her behind. I think she will leave with me, but what if she doesn't? What if Vivian returns to the hospital to wait for the next person? What if she chooses you? If she does, you will never leave her behind. You'll never be free of her.
Hey, thanks for stopping in and watching today's video. If you have stuck with us this far, how about watching another of our videos or trying out our playlists? Again, thanks for watching. We hope you like, comment, and subscribe.